I was born in a hospital in Flatbush and raised in a part of Long Island called Garrison Beach, which was just a bunch of cottages or cabins or cabanas or bungalows. The first serious book I ever read when I was about 13 or 14 was Studs Lanigan by James T. Farrell, because older boys told me it had a lot of hot sex scenes in it. And at 13 and 14, I was very eager to acquire some sex education, and there didn't seem to be anywhere to get it except from novels. I didn't know pornography existed or how to obtain any, and I certainly couldn't get any straight answers from any of the adults I knew. So I read Studs Lanigan. I was astonished. This is about a working-class Irish Catholic ghetto in Chicago, and it was just like my own upbringing in Brooklyn. The working-class Irish Catholics are pretty much the same everywhere. Later, I read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and by God, it was the same story all over again. Well, we didn't know any Protestants. We heard rumors that people called Jews existed somewhere, but that was across the river in Manhattan. We didn't know there were any in Brooklyn. There was the biggest depression in the history of the Western world, in both Europe and the United States. There were millions of people unemployed everywhere. There were people selling apples on street corners to make a living. Well, I think the first ambition I ever had was to be a cartoonist. And that ambition ran from about the age of 4 or 5 until I was 7 or 8. Then I discovered there were books without pictures. I figured, hell, it's easier to write the stories if I don't have to do the pictures, too. So then my ambition turned to become a writer of books. They thought I was batshit crazy. My mother and father told me repeatedly, writers all starve to death unless you got the right contacts, and you don't have the right contacts, so think of a job where you can make some money. Well, I wrote my first novel at the age of 12. It was called The Age of Miracles, and it was intended to be adapted into a musical comedy starring Danny Kaye after it was a bestseller as a novel. Of course, it never got anywhere. Who can write a novel at the age of 12?